Today we're going to learn about the critical period hypothesis, and the book states that a person will not acquire the first language unless given sufficient input and interaction before puberty, which we're going to then talk about the first language acquisition, which states if you don't learn your first language before you're in puberty, then you can't really learn it at all. And there are two children that kind of prove that. And then later on, we're going to talk about the second language acquisition. So later on, or when you're a kid, you could learn a second language. What the book states is that a child does not learn before puberty. He does learn before puberty, but he's not going to, but between you're born and between puberty, is the critical period, going with the critical period hypothesis, that you need to start or you need to learn your language. So our first example is the wild child. They named him Victor. And Victor, he was abandoned in the woods in France. So Victor was trying to fend for himself and live and survive, and he was managing to do that, but he wasn't around anyone to learn language. So he stumbled upon a little town, and he was then found. So his teacher tried to teach him learn language and communication, which didn't really fare out. The teacher kind of left him in the middle of sessions and stuff and wasn't a very good teacher, because it was so frustrating to even teach him, because he was old enough where he should have learned it, but he didn't. And he was able to recognize sentences and read a little bit, but speech was a problem, reading was a problem, phonetics, everything was an issue. And then our second case is Jeannie, who was a victim of abuse, I believe, with her parents. And what happened there was, she was tied down, she was barely spoken to, she didn't learn language either. So after that, added up to the support that children must learn their first language really early on. So literally right out of the womb, they need to learn it. The book then states that this would mean if learners did not learn the language before a certain age, they would display elements of transfer or would not be able to acquire the rules of the second language. So then, what it's pretty much stating, and then it states again in the book, that there is some evidence, for instance, that people who learn a language later in life have an accent or make grammatical errors, which means that you're bringing your own accent to how you talk into the language, and small grammatical errors that you're saying a word in the wrong placement of a sentence, or it's spelled incorrectly because you're used to it how your language, like Spanish and English, are different languages. They put how you translate it, words are in different places. But with language, we all pretty much know someone. My teacher is fluent in 3 languages, I believe, and she learned all of those later on. So with the critical period hypothesis, I think, in my opinion, it's pretty much disproved. It's really not a thing. So if we're going to move on to the second language acquisition more, the book states we probably all know someone, whether because of talent, motivation, or hard work, has learned a second language very well as an adult, which is true. When do American children start learning their language, a second language? If their first language is English, it's either in the home, which is fine and dandy, that's great, because then they're able to learn it better. But if it's not, and if it's all based on schooling, then you only learn it in high school. In some states, my state, Ohio, you only learn it in college. in high school, and then you could also further education in college. And this is pretty much like this. It's, the book states, the sensitive period, which I believe is better because, yeah, you can mix it up like here and there, but you're also learning it. So you're learning it. You can learn a language. I know many people that learn a different language or have a second language. I have a few students or peers in my class, in most of my classes, that can speak more than one language. Me, unfortunately, I speak one. That's English, clearly. But other people are able to speak Spanish, Arabic, so many other languages, and they're able to learn English. And this is also learning at a later date. So they're not in puberty anymore, they're in high school, and they're able to learn all of this. So with learning a second language, it is clear you're able to do it at any time of your life, and that you may or may not have an accent. Everyone is able to understand you as long as you're speaking everything mostly correct. So in any closing statements, everyone is able to acquire another language if they try. That's all you have to do. You'll just have to try. It may be hard, but you just have to try and you'll get it. And that you might mess up, and that's okay. But that's all a part of learning. We learn on a daily basis. And this is the end of my language artifact. I hope I get a good grade. Bye.